fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and giallo films. And for this, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Of all the Italian films I've done in this marathon, at least, I have not come across one of these yet, which kind of surprised, kind of not, but I'm glad I finally get to do one. I was going to wait until the next time I do a marathon of these, which will probably be after, depending on when this ends. But this is actually a slasher film from the 80s. And it's one I've known about, but have not been able to find anywhere. And it's actually directed by Ruggero Deodato. Cannibal Holocaust, House on the Edge of the Park, Jungle Holocaust. And it's 1986's Body Count, also known as Camping Terror or Camping del Terror. It's got some German titles. In Denmark, it was released as Shaman. And yeah, this is just a cheap-ass bootleg that I found on Mercari. I'll admit this is a bootleg. I can admit when I have bootlegs, so leave me alone about my Tales from the Crypt box set. And yeah, it's ripped straight from the VHS. I mean, even the artwork is exactly the same. The transfer is exactly the same as the VHS, which is fine. I'm not a big Nazi about quality. I actually love VHS quality. So that gives a lot of charm to this. And I have done 80s slasher films before. I've reviewed Stage Fright, Bloody Moon, Nightmare Beach. Thankfully, Body Count was not included in the 1974 to 2013 Volume 2 of So Deadly, So Perverse, the Encyclopedia of Giallo Films. And yes, I do have all 3 volumes. I'll do a review of them at some point. So thankfully, it wasn't in here, but Stage Fright is, for whatever reason. Bloody Moon, Nightmare Beach, they're all in here for whatever reason. Nightmare Beach and Bloody Moon, I guess I can understand, but Stage Fright, that's a slasher. But I digress. So thankfully, Body Count was not in here. It has a pretty interesting cast. I mean, we got Charles Napier, of course, playing the sheriff. We have David Hess, Last House on the Left, House on the Edge of the Park. So that right there is awesome. And slasher fans will know the movie Intruder, one of the most underrated slashers of the 80s. How that is marketed as starring Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. I mean, it doesn't have David Hess on it, but it has Charles Napier. But they're actually big characters. They're not just in one quick scene. And of course, it is a cabin in the woods slasher flick. The back says, in the tradition of Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Silent Night, Deadly Night. Friday the 13th, absolutely. I mean, all the way down to the kills, even the score, which I will say is the best part about this movie. It's one of the best scores I've heard in a while. Perfect blend of Italian score and 80s synth slasher score. It sounds like if you take the score to the theme to Halloween, Friday 13th Part 3, like the disco-y, poppy theme, and just put like this crazy bass beat and synth over it. Really love the score to this. Really opens the film up. And we got this ugly bastard as the killer, who is the supposed shaman. So as I said before, it is directed by Ruggero Deodato, which I'm glad I got to do another film of his during this marathon. I did do Jungle Holocaust just prior to the marathon. The music was actually by Claudio Simonetti, so I guess that's why it sounds like a great 80s synth poppy type score, Italian score, because he's the front man of Goblin. At least I'm pretty sure he is. Yes, he's the keyboardist for Goblin. Now, even though this is an Italian film, it was released in '86 in the States first, and then in '87 it was released in Italy. Now, I'm not sure how long a body count is. The cut I have is 83 minutes. I don't know if there's a longer cut of it. I'm going to assume it's uncut, but it's hard knowing with just a bootleg, and every other place I've looked only says, actually, one said 80 minutes, one said 90. So I doubt there's 7 minutes worth of material cut out of this. But anyway, the cast, there's really no one other than Charles Napier, David Hess, Mimsy Farmer, and Nancy Briley, who was actually in Demons 2, which I just reviewed. And Ivan Rasimov, who's done a number of Giallos, ones that I've reviewed. He's in a couple short scenes. Now, one thing about 80s slasher films is you have ones that are big body count films. Friday 13th, perfect example. Then you have ones like Iced and Death Valley, where there's really nothing to them. All the kills are pushed like the last 10-15 minutes. Home Sweet Home is another one. And then you have ones that are both. Now, if a movie's going to call itself body count and be a slasher film, it better deliver. We have 13 kills in this. So right there, and they're pretty evenly spaced. It does get heavier towards the end, but 13 kills for an 83-minute movie, not bad. 3 of those kills are off-screen, so we really get 10 on-screen. It's not a gory movie. I mean, we get a lot of axes to the head or stabbings. One guy even gets an axe to the hand and his fingers come off. A lot of it happens really quick. You would think a slasher film by someone like Deodato would be incredibly gory. Not so much. And yeah, this does feel like one of the many Friday 13th knockoffs, which I'll agree it is, but if you're a slasher fan, you're probably going to enjoy it. It is one of those slasher films that start out in one period and then we skip time over a decade, which it shows a couple going out to this camp out in the woods that's owned by David Hess, his wife, and his young 8-year-old son, Ben. They get killed by the shaman, which, yeah, it's this face with long white hair. It looks like a mask. It's kind of like a Madman Mars type of effect. And it even looks like it can shapeshift a couple times. Because even like the voice is, I could be wrong, but it seemed like it can copy people's voices to trick who it's chasing, or it can even appear as that person. So we see the first couple get killed, the young 8-year-old witnesses it happen, and then we skip 15 years later. We have two groups of people. It's like, I'm not even going to try to remember who is who because none of the characters matter in this movie. I know, like, when people talk Friday 13th, they say they have, like, the Breakfast Club cast. You got, you know, the stoner, the jock, the cheerleader. You got the clown, you know, the goofball. You got the virgin. This, everyone is... the character Sydney, who, is the comic relief. You have, what's her name? Tracy, I think, who's the obvious final girl. Everyone else doesn't really matter. I mean, there's Sissy, Dave, Sharon. There, I actually have it pulled up because I couldn't remember everyone's name. All right, so you have Scott, Sharon, Tracy, Tony, Sid or Cindy, Sissy. Then you have Ben, who is David Hess's son. They pick him up because there's an RV and then there's a truck that find out they're going to the same camp. The RV picks Ben up. Ben is David Hess's son. We find out David Hess, in the last 15 years, has been setting crazy booby traps all over the property, out in the woods. He's been trying to catch this shaman, at least since that first couple was killed. He actually kind of looks like Rob from Friday the 13th Part 4. If he had actually been hunting Jason for as long as he looks like he has in Part 4. Like, David Hess has got some gray. Even though he's a bit of a psycho in this movie, too. This is, like, the most nice guy role I've seen David Hess have. And it is kind of amusing seeing David Hess have, like, a meal at a table with his wife while there's kids outside partying. And he's, like, the good guy. He tells them that the camp is closed, but Ben convinces him to let the two groups stay outside. And then chaos ensues. There's a subplot where his wife, Julia, who's played by Mimsy Farmer, is having an affair with the sheriff, Charles Napier. And normally I would say it goes nowhere, but this actually ties into the plot pretty well. Napier, there's an interaction between him and Hess where he tells him, watch the traps. Someone's going to get hurt. We have kids staying out here now. And then Hess tells him, stay away from Julia. She's my wife. And they kind of threaten each other. And he keeps showing up, spend time with the wife, Julia. And then at one point, there's an altercation between Hess and Julia where he's choking her, because talk about Ben and the failing of their marriage and possibly even the sheriff comes up and he starts strangling her. She hits him over the head with a trophy. She drags him out into the shed, a la The Shining. Almost like the shed's the food pantry. Charles comes there, and at one point, while everyone's running around, the lead girl, what did I say her name was? Tracy? No, because Tracy gets killed. Carol, Cheryl, whoever it is, the final girl is in the shed. This other girl runs it. She finds some bodies, runs in the house. Julia suspects she knows about Hess, so she starts acting kind of threatening. She runs away from Julia into the woodshed. Hess is awakened. He was just knocked unconscious. And then he, hits her in the face with like a hatchet or a machete. Final girl witnesses it, gets locked in the shed. She's there for most of the movie. So that affair doesn't just lead to nothing. It plays into the plot. And then when I get into spoilers, I'll get more into it. But so it makes them, both Hess and at one point even Julia, look like the killers to these kids. And it's because they have their marital problems that helps sprawl that out. So I like how it's not just a subplot that is runtime fodder. Like, it actually amounts to the plot. A few of the traps actually kill people. Like the one guy, Cindy, he runs over a tripwire and it triggers this stick with a sharp, with like a point on it. Hits him in the back, comes out his front. And it's an Italian film, so it's got that thick, like vibrant red paint for blood, which I actually like. In like zombie films or slasher films, especially cannibal films, even though it looks fake, it has a charm to it. One guy gets thrown off a cliff. One girl gets like a knife to the back of the head, out her mouth. You do get some great giallo-esque shots, like the couple in the beginning when the girl's in the car, you see the knife go through the front seat, so but it's like in the foreground, so you see the knife coming through while she's in the back screaming. So you get some nice camera work, especially when, this is why I say it doesn't matter who is a couple, because there's one main couple, but then they both splinter off and fall for someone else. So while, who was it? Tony and Tracy. Oh, actually, Tracy was stabbed through the back of the head with a meat hook, which in one scene it looked like a knife, but when we see her again, it's a meat hook. But her and Tony were in the rundown bathhouse to have sex. Find out there's a hidden room where there's all these jars with body parts, which Julia has a dream about at one point. Which, the dream was actually pretty cool. I know I'm all over the place, but Julia, it sort of towards the middle, Julia has a dream with the room with the jars. Ben going in there, or Ben walking in the RV and seeing a naked woman's leg in the bed in the back, kind of writhing like she's tossing and turning, pulled the blanket over her. But when he goes and pulls the blanket off, it's just a severed leg. So that's interesting. But then the hidden room with all the jars of body parts. Tony runs around, who's this guy. He's the one that gets the axe to the hand, and then he gets just hacked to death. He's put in that room. They're the bodies that are found. And there's no real way to review it without just going chronologically. But I mean, several people get stabbed, axe to the head, fall from the cliff. It's a lot, it's a lot of your typical slasher kills. Not a lot of them are super inventive. There is a twist at the end, so I'll say spoilers. But if you're a fan of Friday 13th or Madman, then I think you'll like it. Another thing worth mentioning was it takes place in Colorado, but it was filmed in Italy. It very much looks like Colorado, like all the way down to the cabin, and just it looks like America. So they did a good job with the production. And I mean, for a rather short film, it's got a body count. It's called body count. It better have one. It's not super gory. Like I said, it's mostly stabbings or hackings with an axe. But there's plenty of it. It's not super gory, just a lot of thick Italian blood. The acting isn't all terrible. I mean, the Cindy character can be pretty annoying. At one point, there is a Troll 2 moment when Ben is told, because the ones that are left is Dave, Final Girl, and Ben. They think Hess has been the killer the whole time. They try telling Ben. And when the girl says, I saw him kill your mom, Ben has this Troll 2 moment that's like, no, my mom? Or what does he say? Not my mom. It can't be. That's impossible. What? You know, it's so laughable. But if you're a slasher fan, I honestly think that you'll enjoy it. So I'm going to get into spoilers. He runs out into the shed, sees his mom, and then we get the flashback to when he was young. He walked in on Julia and the sheriff together. And she told him, you know, don't tell your father or the shaman will get you. So, oh, Dave did have a nice moment when he's in his tent and the knife comes through the front and he's like holding the knife and it pulls out. I thought that was a decent moment. Also, when I think it's the final girl finds Tracy and Tony in that boarded up room, there is this great tracking shot of her backing up screaming down the hallway and the camera follows her. I really like that shot with the degraded VHS quality. I thought it was great looking. So anyway, then the shaman, you know, we hear Ben scream when he finds his mom, but then we don't see him again. They assume the shaman got him. So then the shaman comes inside. And yeah, it looks really poor. It looks like a rubber mask. He's got really hairy hands that look like gloves. It's the final girl and Dave are left. The one that was with him, Sissy, she gets axed in the head by the shaman. But Dave and final girl are outside, and then shotgun blasts hit the shaman. And it's Charles Napier. He walks up, takes the shaman mask off in his bed. So then we find out Ben's been doing all the killing this whole time, at least in this setting. Because they ask him, like, so did he kill those people when he was 8? Napier says, no, but he knows who did it. And for whatever reason, he snapped and used the shaman as the cover-up. Even though it is unclear, other than the killings in the opening 15 years ago, because we're also shown a flashback from a doctor who tells the story of his daughter and her boyfriend who were killed. So we get a flashback. As it doesn't really say how long ago, but so it's unclear entirely who did what, except for the ones with the booby traps. Like Sydney, we know that was from Hess, unintentionally. But Hess is still out there, and Napier yells out, I know you're still out there. He thinks there's a connection, and David Hess runs into the real shaman, so there is a real one, raises the axe, freeze frame, with the scream, so we know he's killed. But yeah, I thought this was enjoyable. It didn't really feel slow. And I mean, once the killings start, it's fairly consistent. Pretty short film, 13 kills. Only 3 are off screen. Yeah, it's not a Friday the 13th gore fest, but at least the body count is there. And I get great score by Claudio Simonetti. I think that's the best part about this movie. It's one of the best scores I've heard in a while, especially for a slasher film. You know, like I said, Friday the 13th Part 3, a little bit of Halloween, good synth bass beats and rhythms. But I'm glad I finally found this movie. I don't know why it's so hard to find, and I don't care that it's a bootleg. I still enjoy it. I'm sorry if this review was all over the place, but there's not really a whole lot to say story-wise. So I kind of just got all over the place with the kills. But anyway, that's what I got for 1986 Body Count by Ruggero Deodato. So stay tuned for more Italian horror and giallo films. Thank you for watching.